Welcome once again to 26 North Halstead. I'm your host, George Blaze. Well, it seems as though as of the recording of this show, we've gotten through election night. Nothing's on fire near me right now, but that doesn't mean anything can happen between now and when this show airs here. But we're going to try and be as timely as we can. So many things to talk about. It was such an eventful night. And as we knew, we're going to be anticipating results as we go through the week. And hopefully by the time this airs, we'll have some conclusions on some of the things we're talking about today. Joining me right now is my good friend, the mayor of Hyde Park, Mario Smith, host of News from the Service Entrance on LUMPEN Radio 105.5. Mario, it is fantastic to talk to you again, sir.
Thank you. What's up, everybody? Hey, Georgie, how are you, sir?
I'm doing good. We've been sitting here sequestered at home here and trying to stay out of the mayhem that everybody got us ready for. A lot of the news media had us prepared for absolute chaos, fire, and mayhem as of election night. But what happened was, as everyone predicted, there are no answers on election night, but we can still talk about what happened there. This supposed blue wave that was supposed to happen where the Democrats were to take over not only the Senate, but gain more seats in the House, didn't manifest. A lot of the polling data that had come out nationally up until the last minute seems to not have borne fruit. I guess I want to start there with the polling data. What's gone on with this election and the polling leading up to it tell you about our national polling data?
I think people lie. I know people lie. And I think maybe in relation to the polls, people just were like, you know what? Yeah, I'm going for Biden, when they didn't want the public shame of saying that they may have voted for Donald Trump. It also shows that a pollsters, that's a difficult job, apparently, because they haven't gotten it right 2 elections now. And even with the numbers that were corrected to go with the bad numbers from 2016, they were still wrong. I also think that in some respects, people aren't really putting enough credence into the early vote and what that really means and what it meant. And those votes are being counted. So there's a bit of a push and pull, if you will. And I don't know. I'm glad I'm not Nate Silver, because I'd hate to be him on the day after Election Day when he's been wrong twice. So
It's tough, particularly for pundits out there and people who are trying to make things interesting and try to put out information out there for people to follow. But I think if you look at the last minute national polling data in terms of the spread and you account for the improbability there, that nationally speaking, we're right about right for some of the total national polls. I think the state by state polls, though, were completely off. You have some places where Biden was up by 10, up by 7, up by 6, and that just didn't bear fruition. But the one thing, Mario, and this is Black Twitter has been blowing me up. This is Wednesday, the day after election right now. And Black Twitter is blowing up right now because everyone's claiming that once again, when we look at Wisconsin and Michigan, Black people pulled the Democrats' keister out of the fire on this one. What's your view on that?
Well, as always, 1, 2, I think the Democratic Party would be wise to actually walk up on a Black man or woman and ask them things and talk to them directly eye to eye. I think where the Democrats failed yet again is that they assume people are automatically going to be like, oh, he's Democratic, I got it. This is a different kind of electorate. This voter is a little bit more educated than past voters. Not to say that past voters weren't educated. There's just more information available. This voter is not just going for, oh, Joe Biden's a Democrat. Okay, great, I'll vote for him. There's a lot at play. And I don't believe that the Democratic Party made any attempt to really, really go after what has proven to be, yet again, their bread and butter. The Black vote matters. And because they treat it like, oh, we'll get the Black vote, we don't need to talk to them. That doesn't work anymore. They absolutely need to talk to Black men and women, particularly Black men, and sell them on why they should vote Democratic. And then the other part of that, this is more of a referendum against the Democratic Party and more of a vote against a cult of personality, because that's what you were really voting for. Candidate Trump means nothing. The cult of personality, however, that's a real thing. And that's what people were voting either for or against. So Joe Biden, I hope those numbers pan out and that Joe Biden is the president by the time this airs on the airing dates. And if it does, it will be because Blacks and Latinos saved his rump again, or saved the Democrats' rump again. But they have to start paying more attention to their electorate and to their base, and they don't.
Clearly, when we look at what happened in many of the key states here, particularly there was a big flip in Arizona and Nevada, apparently, that kind of came as a surprise to many people there, which has a lot to do with the Latino vote, the Hispanic vote in that area, for sure. But when we look at states like Florida, where once again we have almost 60% of these Cuban Americans and these so-called Black and Brown coalition, it seems like the black part of the Black Brown coalition gets thrown in la basura when it comes to Latino politics and many people's trajectory as perhaps being aspiring whites. Maybe they're the next one to be let through the door. I know that's a harsh criticism. It's something I'm reading right now on social media. What are your views on that kind of criticism of the Latino vote in Florida?
I think that vote, have you ever been to Miami and dealt with some of the local folk in Miami? They don't really care too much for people that aren't either Cuban or from Miami, in my opinion, based on my own research through Miami. I also believe that Florida, for better or for worse, is a state that goes to the beat of its own drum, if you will. Joe Biden really didn't make a good showing with Latinos when he showed up with what was it? Despacito was playing.
Yes.
The first time he spoke to them.
Yeah.
I would have been offended by that. I think again, the Democratic Party does not do itself any favors when it comes to Blacks and Latinos. And in Florida's always going to be that one state. There's an image that's in my head of Bugs Bunny with the saw when he's sawing Florida away from the rest of the union. And I think Floridians kind of feel like they're not really a part of what's going on the mainland, if you will. So they take their vote and do what they want with it. And they love Donald Trump in Florida. They love him. And that love for him gives them the opportunity to do what they did, which is to vote Trump.
But it seems counterintuitive considering the last 4 or 5 years, actually, of rhetoric, anti-Hispanic, anti-Latino, anti-immigrant rhetoric coming from the Trump campaign and in that entire warehouse there, that in such tremendous percentages that Latinos in any state would decide that, all things considered, if it's between us or Black Lives Matter, at least maybe we can get a foot in the door here.
Well, you would think, because the man literally, not imagined, put children in cages. He made sure immigrants had the hardest time they could possibly have to get to America. And I don't know and I have not talked to any of my friends who would know these things about what the temperature is with Latinos in Miami or in Florida, or Latinos, period, because he got a lot of his numbers are up with Latinos. I could not, if he was locking up Africans and putting them in cages, I would not be able to go for that. I would not. I wouldn't be able to do that.
You know what, Mario? You and I are both old enough to have been, fully fledged adults watching the whole Elian Gonzalez thing going on there, and I couldn't imagine that community of people would be Trump supporters today. Help me understand what the dynamic is there.
I would imagine that the reason why his numbers are so big with Latinos has to do with the economy. But then you go, well, the economy's been in the tank for 7-8 months now. I don't know. I don't know if he has pictures, what his pull is with people. But this, again, the cult of personality. Are you voting for him as a potential legislator, somebody that's going to be able to get work done? Or are you voting for Donald Trump, the TV star? Does he appeal to you because he says I've never heard the man speak a word of Spanish. I don't know what his connection is with Latinos outside of maybe giving them jobs at his properties. And I'm not trying to be cold. I'm just saying. Um,
I don't know,
it's
Mario.
baffling.
I think the fractures, or not even the fractures, but the flaws in the Black-Brown coalition that everybody wants to talk about, show themselves starkly when we look at national elections like this,
Mm-hmm.
and we're able to digest the actual demographics and numbers here. We need to really take a good look at this and see, like, what are we talking about in terms of that. In other places, one of the biggest, I guess, letdowns or defeats for the Democratic Party this time around was that Senator Lindsey Graham, despite $110 million being poured into a campaign against him, held on by a substantial margin to keep his Senate seat.
I don't know if I'm his opponent, I am really looking at my team and going, what happened? How did we lose when the sentiment, and I'm sure of this through South Carolina, is we're tired of Lindsey Graham and amongst the Black community in South Carolina, for sure. And just the way Lindsey Graham has kowtowed to everything that Donald John has wanted to do and co-signed on every crazy thing that Donald John has wanted to do. I do not believe in my soul that Lindsey Graham should be winning anything. The problem is, again, and I hate to keep saying this, they're all part of this cult of personality. All of them. Mitch McConnell's part of it. He's part of it. Every one of those congressmen are complicit in this cult of personality. It's not about Trump or Trumpism. It's about the agenda. And their agenda, Lindsey Graham's included, has been to do what they've been doing the past 4 years. They've waited for this day for so long. It's almost like Cub fans waiting, and I'm not trying to be funny against Cub fans. Forget Cub fans. It's like White Sox fans waiting for the White Sox to actually win a World Series. You wait for so long, and when the opportunity comes, you're like, let me jump on that. And if you're able to legislate within your agenda and do what you want to do, not what the people need, but what you want to do and what you think people need, then you have what you have. So it's all a cult of personality, man. All of them are complicit. Why is it that they were able to push a Supreme Court justice through, but there's no stimulus package for people who are unemployed, who are hungry, who at some point have to pay their rent? This is amazingly stupid. And it just continues to show that the way that the United States government is set up and the way that the Constitution is set up does not work for the people in this moment. A constitutional convention, to me, would not be out of the question if it weren't for the fact that you have a very partisan Senate for now, and Congress itself is not ready for any of that kind of action.
On a broader scale, looking at the Republican Party in general, as it stands right now, we're taping here on a Wednesday afternoon. Things may change by the end of the week here when this airs, but it looks like Joe Biden is going to be winning this election, and there'll be some court cases and some things to dispute it. But it looks like the lead he has here are well beyond what a recount might fix in any of the states, Wisconsin, Michigan, and otherwise here. But clearly, if President Trump has lost this election and Joe Biden has won, how does the Republican Party put itself back together now, having gone into this election with no agenda? They had no platform except for Donald Trump. They ran 100% behind the cult of personality of Trumpism. And now that that's over, where does that leave them? How do they begin to pick up the pieces? Or do they just, is it the night of long knives where everyone starts stabbing each other in the back for the next couple of months?
I think you see that. I think you see a lot of finger pointing. I think you'll see a fair amount of blaming. I'm sure he's going to scorch the earth on his way out. I hope he finds a reliable mover in DC. There are several. I know for a fact that his litigation is going to fail, because if you're trying to get people to recount votes, you have to have at least some kind of semblance of fraud being part of your platform in terms of wanting to do that. I don't think they're going to find much fraud, which is why I think the states have been taking their time counting these mail-in ballots, counting the absentee ballots to make sure that there is no fraud. So if you're going to go to the Supreme Court and go, hey, this election was rigged, prove it. And he won't be able to prove it. And I think history will bear that out. And Joe Biden and the Democrats have a lot of lawyers too. And I dare say better lawyers than any lawyers Donald Trump has ever had in his life. So I don't know if that's a fight that he's going to be able to fight. And then there's another factor involved. Mitch McConnell kind of can say to him, it's done. Stand down. You lost. 270 is 270. If he gets 270 electoral votes, the Electoral College is not going to turn around and go, oh, no, we want Donald Trump to be the president. It doesn't work that way. And I'm wondering if that becomes a scenario. But you talked about how
if Mitch McConnell hasn't stood up and said anything up to this point, what makes you think that he would do it now?
Only because he mentioned when Donald Trump first talked about the election may be illegal and the transfer of power, that he may not go for the transfer of power. Mitch McConnell was the first person to stand and say, there will be a transfer of power. I think that was clear. He didn't stumble and move around on that when he said that very clearly. And that leads me to
it doesn't hurt to have won Mitch McConnell have won his seat back for another 6 years. He can totally toss Donald Trump into the trash can at this point.
I'm thinking about it like, that would be the move. If I was Mitch McConnell, I'd be like, man, I got my job, but I'm tired of you. You've made my job so hard the last 1,300 and whatever days that you've been here. It's time for you to go. You lost. I definitely think that is something to consider. I don't know if it's going to happen. Of course, I have no way of knowing, but it's something to consider. You got to think like evil people. And that's how evil people work.
I don't know if I can think like evil people, but that depends on what you think about me. It happens sometimes. Let's pull the focus back locally here. Here in Cook County in the city of Chicago, the election, not a lot of controversial things, not a lot of unexpected things happen, but you have Kim Foxx handily holding control and taking her seat back, despite quite a challenger from Republican.
Yeah, it says a lot about the Fraternal Order of Police and a lot about all those folks who want to continue to bring Jussie Smollett's name up for something that happened 2 years ago that really had zero effect on crime and the effects of crime in Chicago and in the county. It was foolish to me to try to keep that narrative going. Chicago has crime problems, man, like problems. You know that, I know that. I don't think blaming Kim Foxx helps the problem. Her campaign, though, I'm wondering if you're Kim Foxx now, are you like, man, this is, and you could tell in her acceptance speech, there's a lot of weariness. And she's been going through personal things with her husband being sick and all this. I think for her, and I think for the county and for the city, there has to be a reexamination of the depth of this problem with crime and how Kim Foxx and the police and the mayor, how they can work together more efficiently, should be part of the conversation as well. But it looks bad for the Fraternal Order of Police. It looks really bad for them. I think they come out looking the worst because they fought the hardest to get her out.
Well, it's interesting if you look at the actual election data, the difference between suburban Cook County and Chicago in terms of this Kim Foxx election is stark. Mm-hmm. Suburban Cook County overwhelmingly voted for O'Brien and really was going to put Kim out.
They wanted to.
They wanted to. There's a huge split there between suburban Cook County and the city of Chicago itself. Is this merely a racial divide, or is there something else more nuanced there?
Oh, it's absolutely a racial divide. And I think that's okay to have the conversation about that. And she brought that up in her acceptance speech. And it's kind of like when people go, I don't have a racist bone in my body. Yeah, you do. Your whole skeletal system is racist. Stop that. So I'm not surprised that the suburbs felt the way they did about Kim Foxx, because they made the issue with Jussie Smollett all about crime in Chicago. The dog whistle is crime in Chicago when it comes to race, because the assumption is that black people are out here just willy-nilly gunning each other down and people stepping over dead bodies, and that's not a fact. And in any measure, that's not fact. So yes, the city of Chicago does not have a problem with Kim Foxx. Dare I say, Black Chicago doesn't have a problem with Kim Foxx. The suburbs do. She's going to have to work on that, I suppose. And perception is reality. The Fraternal Order of Police, again, made a really strong effort to get her out and to get Judge O'Brien in. And I just don't think in the city that plays well, because it looks just like what it is. It looks like white people trying to tell black people how to think, vote, and live.
One of the other major things on this ballot locally was, of course, the referendum on the graduated tax for the state of Illinois, which somehow, despite the economics of what's going on in the state of Illinois, not just talking about the city of Chicago, but across the state here, all these rural counties in central Illinois and southern Illinois, and have you, people still feel I think they bought into the rhetoric of the opposition to this proposal here by calling it a Springfield politician's tax hike, as opposed to a graduated tax. It's strange to me that lost.
You know what? You just explained it better than they did about what that tax is. Their problem was their messaging was terrible. They did not do a good job of explaining to people why it was important to do that. I got it, because in my head, a billionaire that's able to pay more in taxes should, period. I don't know how many billionaires there are in Illinois, but apparently there are a lot, because nobody saw that coming. I thought that was going to be a slam dunk, but I do know the messaging was wrong. And that's on JB. He's got to wear that, because he put a lot of his money into that campaign and wanting that to happen. So, I don't know.
Were you surprised by the outcome on that referendum?
Absolutely. Who wants to pay tax? What world do we live in where someone's like, I don't want to, I'm poor, I'll pay more money. Nobody wants that. So I thought for sure that was going to be something that would pass without any kind of consternation at all. And it didn't. It got kicked. And that will happen when your messaging is backwards. I don't know, which was interesting too, because JB Pritzker, by all accounts, has a lot of loot. So for him to fight so hard for it and it not happen, that's damning to me for him.
Well, in the midst of everything, the undercurrent is we are still in this coronavirus pandemic, which has gotten exponentially worse. People very, very close to me, people I know, just in the past couple of weeks, all of a sudden, everybody I know has a personal acquaintance who has got it. I don't know anyone who's in the hospital at this moment, but I know people who've been very, very sick. But this thing is real.
Yeah, man. I get into an argument with people when they go, "This is a hoax," and I go, "When have you ever been a part of anything that great? What do you do that you are worthy to get hoaxed?" You know what I'm saying? It's been 8 months of this. This administration, the federal administration, the Trump administration failed, and the states suffered because of his failure. Almost 230,000 people, more than that, I'm sure, have died because of or related to COVID-19. You can't come up with a plan to stop it, so you throw your hands up and say, screw it. And here we are. If Donald Trump does lose this election, this will be the reason why. It won't be because of anything else, because if there's no coronavirus, Joe Biden is going home and Trump probably wins in a landslide.
Anything that stands out in your mind as we move forward here? What happens with Black Lives Matter? What happens with Antifa? Are we going to see more protests and rioting, even if Biden does win? Does all this stuff continue? Antifa seems to say that doesn't matter who wins, we're going to continue the mayhem. What do you predict for the next couple of months?
I think the problems that have existed the last 4 years have existed the last 400 years for Black people. I don't think that's going to change overnight. I think there needs to be a national discussion about how we elect our leaders. I think there needs to be a national discussion, albeit a short discussion, about how do you recover after the 4 years of this mess. We need to get back into the Paris Accord as a country because our climate is in peril. And if people don't start paying attention to what's going on and why it's 70 degrees in the middle of November in Chicago, then you better know it's a problem. And I think we need to address those problems.
I'm glad you mentioned Paris because, I mean, we're running out of time here today, but the undercurrent of what we've been dealing with this election is in Europe, there has been a string of Islamic terrorist attacks. Apparently, there's a crisis coming and it's spreading, and we haven't been paying attention to it.
Because we're too busy talking about this man's ineptitude when it comes to fighting a disease. I don't want to say the chickens are coming home to roost, but
I can't imagine that it's not going to land on our soil at some point, particularly with all the unrest and everything that's going on right now. But we'll have to see how that pans out. Mario, thank you so much for joining us again. You all can catch Mario News from the Service Entrance weekly on Lumpen Radio 105.5. I'm glad. Stay healthy, Mario. Let's get through this holiday season, and let's talk again soon, sir.
Stay wide awake. Wake up, cape on.
Wake up!
Cape on, baby.
All right. And thank you all for watching. We'll see you next week right here on 26 North Halstead.